on the weaker side. You know what I mean? Like I think the U.S.
Yeah.
is coming up from the top, but now I think the U.S. is in this would be in this scenario the Japan or not Germany.
Hi, welcome to our podcast, Barely Even Friends.
Good morning, buenos dias, ohayo gozaimasu, Hao.
So, we're going to talk about the current, issues with China and Taiwan.
Yeah. So are we just kind of free form discussing it, or is it more of like a debate? What's the structure
We
here?
can just freeform discuss it.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, I guess things with Taiwan. I think in my opinion, started rising. The tensions started to rise a lot very recently. Did you see that whole thing about like it's something like U.S. special forces or U.S. troops might be stationed in Taiwan, which could be I think it is an invasion of China legally. Now we also have Joe Biden releasing a statement that I think he walked back on the other day, saying that if mainland China ever invaded Taiwan, that they would the U.S. defend Taiwan. And I believe mainland China is also saying they're going to fly a jet over Taiwan very soon. So, I mean, if everyone keeps their promise, it's like that is some serious warmongering talk.
Yeah, but the thing is, though, China has been, in Taiwanese airspace, on and off for, fucking years.
But the airspace, as you may or may not know, does go over mainland China as well, which is kind of
Yeah,
goofy.
true. Yeah.
No,
yeah. But doesn't the U.S. and Taiwan have a whole thing where if China invades Taiwan, we have to go help them?
I don't think so, actually.
Or I think they used to, at least.
I'm not too sure. I'm not too sure even if that. I'm not sure if that completely changed after the '70s. I'd actually have to fact check that. I know that's like a thing I've heard a lot, but I'm pretty sure the U.S. Well, the U.S.'s official position is very ambiguous. I think it's actually a lot of because the U.S. recognize. I'm just repeating fucking John Oliver here, but it's obviously the U.S. recognizes that China has a claim to Taiwan, but that Taiwan
Right,
is not necessarily China. Yeah. I think no president has clearly said whether or not they would defend Taiwan. Obviously, Joe Biden just said he would, and he said that was not exactly what he meant. So, I honestly do think that unless the U.S. backs down here, I do think they would defend Taiwan, in my opinion.
I think at the moment, everyone prefers the status quo more or less.
Yeah.
Well, before, because China was still doing the Taiwanese people were able to sell and still do business in China, and that's a huge market for them.
Yeah.
And then the UN that's why there's the two parties in Taiwan where one wants more integration with China and the other one wants more of an independent route.
Yeah, it's the KMT, the enemies of the CPC. They want to be more integrated into China.
Yeah, the Nationalist Party that went to war and lost.
And then the DPP, the Democratic People's Party, I believe it. Democratic Progressive Party. I've heard that they're kind of they're essentially almost kind of a reflection of the U.S. Democrats, and they're verging on wanting to declare full independence for Taiwan, which would be a war with China.
Didn't some of the Taiwanese government officials say Taiwan's functionally independent, so they're not going to declare independence or whatever?
Yeah, Taiwan. I mean, I'm not no expert. That's obviously what she said in that video. I think Taiwan's thing is she's kind of she's very much the she really is kind of the Democrats in the U.S. where there's a lot of talk but doesn't actually do a lot.
Pretty much.
Yeah,
I think
and then,
it's probably in everyone's best case scenario to just leave shit how it is.
yeah, but it's like I guess it's like it's tricky because I think like Taiwan is like obviously like I think there's growing. It's like yes, but it's also like a very untenable situation where it's like China doesn't want Taiwan to be like a governing self-independent country in the long term, and it's like the long-term goal of China to reunify China, and then like Taiwan, I think as exposed by the pandemic, it's like it suffers from the ambiguity of like not being within the WHO, the WTO, the UN really, or any other major international organization. And then I don't know how the fuck the U.S. has a role in this, but the U.S. doesn't want China to have a South China Sea dominance.
Yeah,
I think
it's like because
what are you gonna say?
it's more of it because it's like an economic thing. There's a lot of trade going through that area.
Yeah, yeah. Huge trade area. Obviously, Taiwan's number one producer of semiconductors, and also I think for a while, Kaohsiung in the South Taiwan was like one of the shipping capitals of the world. Not anymore, but there's still a huge amount of trade between Taiwan and the mainland.
The whole South China Sea is pretty tricky because you have like the Philippines, the Vietnam, who like another bunch of other countries like fighting over like a small little area.
Yeah. It is
Well,
bad.
not
I
really
think
small, but yeah.
yeah. And obviously, I'm not gonna say like China is clearly in the right there. I think every country, obviously, like I think the disputes are real in the South China Sea. I think it's one of those things where it's like even between like socialist countries, there's like a want for dominating the sea, I suppose. You know what I mean? But the big issue is, I think, from the Chinese perspective, is that if they lose dominance within the South China Sea, is their only like sea trade route, and that it would be easy for the U.S. to immediately blockade China whenever they want. So that's why there is, I think, this dispute between the U.S. and China specifically over the South China Sea.
Why do you think the tensions have risen quick so much recently, though?
Between the U.S. and China,
Yeah,
I think for multiple reasons. I guess I'm trying to think. When did they really? I think it's been coming for years, right? The
yeah.
U.S. has
Literally ran on it though.
yeah. Well, I think the U.S. has been trying to block in China or the West since before.
Since like Obama.
Oh, yeah, I was gonna say, but since before even China was communist. You know what I mean? With the British Opium Wars, the divvying up China. I mean, Napoleon's whole thing was that China's a sleeping giant. But then I think since the Cold War, I mean, you have to look at both the Korean and Vietnamese wars that were both specifically meant to box in China, and that has like always been the U.S.'s foreign policy there in East Asia. But then
weren't those wars like said to like stop the spread of communism or whatever?
Yeah. But I think even if you read like the way they talk about it, it's like to stop the spread of like China in Asia.
Well, because at that time, China, like the CCP, recently just conquered all of China.
Yeah. I guess they
Except
unified it all in
Taiwan,
49,
yeah.
and then the Korean War is in the 50s, and then the Vietnamese started in the 60s or 50s as well.
I think wasn't the Vietnamese War going on? Yeah, like the 50s. With first, it was with France.
France, yeah, and the U.S. got in.
Yeah. The U.S. was helping France, and then France gave up, and like the U.S. stayed in for whatever reason.
Yeah, and that lasted until the 70s.
Yeah.
And then come the 70s, you have Nixon and Deng Xiaoping opening quote unquote China, and then I guess literally opening China. But I think the U.S. thought that China would play ball with them. And that was weird because in that area, you do see like the U.S. and China kind of aligning over like the whole Sino-Soviet split. U.S. and China became a bit closer. But I think as China has been able to develop and almost like outpace the US. I think in 2014, I'm not sure when Obama's pivot to Asia was, but in 2014 when like was it? No, I'm thinking of 2008. I think
Yeah, it was.
2008 was 2014 the pivot to Asia.
I think so, yeah, because it was like right after the Arab Spring, and Obama was like, "We're done fucking with the Middle East."
Yeah, but
Then things got worse.
I think it was both after 2008 and 2014 that it became clear that China was, I don't know, not clear, but I think the economic peace between the U.S. and China was done because after 2008, after the entire global economy crashed except for China's, China was able to like it from then
And they
on
buy
start
up a
building.
lot of U.S. stuff. Well,
Yeah,
they
yeah,
sold the
but
U.S. a lot of money. Like they gave the U.S. a lot of money for like
yeah,
loans
so
and stuff
the
as
U.S.
well.
became completely indebted to China, and also the China started building up its own domestic economy because and what happened then was before 2008, China was just exporting consumer commodities to the U.S. and Western middle class, but they didn't really have an independent consumer market. So then after that, the CPC became very like focused on developing like China internally to like build up their own like internal economy so they don't have to rely on the world market to like become self-sufficient. They want to become self-sufficient. And after 2014 was the oil crash too as well. And I forget how that all factors in as well. But that's kind of also a huge blow to like US dominance. And now I guess come you have Trump, the whole trade wars because China is like dominating economically.
Well, the oil price crashed because of Russia. No, well, because of Saudi Arabia
Yeah,
wanting to destroy the U.S. Shale oil business
yeah,
or to make it unprofitable,
yeah,
which is kind of
yeah. But
hilarious since Saudi Arabia is supposed to be like the U.S.'s like main ally in that region.
yeah, exactly. But I do think that blow. I think both 2008 and 2014 both contest. I think from the collapse of the Soviet Union until then, the U.S. had like unquestioned dominance over the world. But I think after that, that is no longer the case.
I remember an episode of Simpsons. Homer was like, fuck. The joke was like, which is the country that's coming up? That's going to be like, rising up or whatever. He was like,
Yeah.
he's like, oh, we're Chinese, right? We're like, oh no, we're American. Oh fuck, something like that. I don't.
No, that's funny. That's funny. Yeah. Like I reminds me of the Austin. Do you ever seen the Austin Powers clip
Yeah,
where
the
he's
one
like,
where
he's like, other
when he woke
fucking
up from.
yeah, fucking capitalists are gone or
Yeah, he
whatever.
was like, oh, he was like, we won. Oh, thank God, those capitalist pigs are gone.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, see, it is weird, because I, I think this is a fear. When I was in China, I know I talked to some people about this, and they had this fear, and I don't think it is a real fear. The fear is that like China will become like Japan, because in the '90s, the U.S. was super hawkish economically with Japan, and then because I thought Japan would like take over the global economy and whatnot, the same kind of fear that's being boasted around China now. But then, like Japan's like economy kind of flatlined.
Yeah, now they're stuck in like stagnation,
Yeah, like forever.
which is kind of
Um,
wild because like during the '80s, Japan was like seen as the world like dominating like economic power.
yeah, I do think China and Japan differ a ton though. But I guess the only thing that is kind of similar is that China and Japan both have serious like age. What's we're looking for? Disimbalance
Yeah,
or whatever.
yeah. Now China kind of fucked up with the one-child policy.
Yeah, I think that was a bad move. I can't
Yeah,
help
because
it.
well, people didn't really notice yet that developing a country usually lowers the birth rates, anyways.
Yeah, I'm not sure like, how true this is. I really don't know. I'm not sure if like I don't know if there is a better reason or not, but is that it was like in the '70s. There's all that like overpopulation fear coming out of the West, like not like from the government, but just like well from the government, but just from like
Yeah,
popular culture, and China kind of gave in to that back then. There was a whole like, population bomb book and whatnot that like whatever we'd all died.
Yeah,
It was
because
all like Malthusian shit.
China was exploding in a population at that time, and they were genuinely afraid of like not being able to feed people again.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, I don't think it was the right move. The one child policy obviously was more complicated than like it often is presented. It was like rural people could have more kids, and minorities were allowed to as well. That was like the urban Han Chinese was where the one child policy applied to, which was I think the large percent of the population. But
It still is. Isn't like
yeah,
90% of China like Han Chinese still, or like 80% or
yeah,
something?
yeah. I meant even just like the urban Han,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's
Well,
still I
because
guess it's over 50%.
it's kind of funny, like the Han are like everywhere in Asia, and like I think pretty much every Asian ethnicity has like Han DNA, like Han DNA.
Yeah. I mean, like Indonesia, Vietnam, and whatnot. I know there's like there's a whole debate within Chinese culture over it because I think it's like Han still is like Han's almost kind of like a post-racial identity in a way because there are so many different like cultures and ethnicities I guess within Han. But like obviously, like Han was kind of like the unified. Han just means you descend from the unified China from like the Han dynasty. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
But like I think some people would argue that there's like still in like the Han identity there's like a lot of diversity. But I think it's almost kind of like being white in America. Like no one really cares like about their previous cultures in a way.
Yeah, because there's like Singapore is like mostly Han Chinese too.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Yeah, because it seemed like China kind of like colonized the rest of like Eastern Europe, not Europe, even East
Yeah.
Asia, like Southeast Asia, more or less.
Yeah, yes, and 'cause they didn't call like it wasn't like the Chinese state
Yeah,
colonized
like state
Singapore.
doing it. It's like a migration of like the Han people.
Yeah, but even then it was like I mean I'm sure you can draw obviously there's parallels. I think it was
Well,
more like
you
what do you
know
say?
the Bantu expansion in Africa.
Yeah,
It's kind of like that, where like the Bantu people just spread out through the rest of Africa and more
yeah,
or less like
yeah,
intermingled and with the other African populations.
yeah. I mean even I think it even compares to kind of like I'm not even going to bring up the settler states, but I feel like there were obviously like the literal settlers from like Britain and France and whatnot that came over to the Americas, and but then there's like the like migrations of Eastern Europeans and Irish and Southern Europeans to like other parts of Europe for jobs. I feel like that was kind of like the Han migrations in the like 19th and 20th century.
Because
Like,
it's funny, like Taiwan wasn't even really part of China until like the 1600s. Like at one
well,
point, it was
that
even it was like
yeah,
it was dominated. It was owned by Spain and first the Dutch, then Spain, then the Chinese,
yeah. I think like
and they like had their own like indigenous population at the time.
I have to fact
I
check
still
this, but
do.
yeah, they do. I think there was like Han migrations that go to Taiwan way before then. But yeah, I think it wasn't until
Yeah,
like 1638 or something
yeah. The
that
Qing dynasty, like the
yeah,
one of the dynasties conquered it.
it was like the Qing. It was like fuck. I guess the Ming Dynasty for a while held out there. There was a war between the Qing and the Ming, so it's kind of like a similar to KMT and CPC, where the Ming Dynasty hung out in Taiwan for a hot sec. But I think there's even like with the Spanish and Dutch colonization is
It didn't
neither of
last that
them
long.
they didn't last that long, and neither of them actually really held the entire island. It was more like they had bases on the island.
Yeah, because wasn't the rest of the island mostly indigenous still? And like some China, Han settlers as well.
Yeah, it's a good question. I kind of wonder how. I think there's kind of like I'm just thinking today. I'm not sure. I think even then, but I'm not sure what the state of the indigenous population was in the 1600s. But is that when you go to Taiwan today, I forget. There's like what 13 million people on the island. I think Taipei might have a population of like 3 million or something. But pretty much Taipei is almost entirely like KMT people who came over from like the 1950s, and like the Chinese from China from all around. Then the rest of the country is kind of like most people are mixed between like indigenous and Chinese from like the hundreds of years of migrations and whatnot. And then the indigenous people of Taiwan are like super isolated and kind of live in the mountains of Taiwan, and are kind of left in like abject poverty. So that's kind of like and they make up like 2% of the population.
Hey, just like the Americans.
Yep. Taiwan really kind of copied America in a lot of aspects. So yeah, I don't know. I think I'd have to reread this, but I'm pretty sure the CPC would want Taiwan to be like an autonomous region of China. Which, I mean, I'm not sure how that would work exactly, but I think that could highlight the indigenous cultures of Taiwan more. Because like right now, it's like the indigenous culture of Taiwan is like, I mean,
Wasn't it decimated?
It was decimated and is suppressed. It's pretty disgusting. I went to a lot of museums in China and Taiwan, and like I don't know how you call a museum fucked up, but the museums in Taiwan, in my opinion, were fucked up than the Chinese museums. The Chinese museums didn't cover certain political topics. I mean, I don't think I think the museums I went to in China like talked about like all the cultural diversity of China. Taiwan was like specifically just Chinese history, and it did not like mention anything about like Taiwanese or the Taiwanese indigenous history.
And that's like you going to a museum in America, and all they started off like right when like they skip pretty much all the indigenous history, and then even then they could skip to they go straight to like the British settlements of America or some shit.
Yeah. It's sad, and I think they literally are treated just like the American indigenous. I mean, I think this kind of says a lot about how the racial stereotypes are stupid, because like I think it's just about like kind of like how indigenous people are treated in like kind of these situations, but like they're kind of treated as being this kind of like poor, like almost kind of like drunk / like the stereotype of being like kind of like a hillbilly kind of thing. I don't know. It's pretty fucked up, but.
You think China will try to incorporate Taiwan anytime soon?
Do I think they'll try and like really like push for it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think we could see that in the 2020s, if not the 2030s. I mean, if not by then, I guess we're out of the scope of this era. I mean, if it goes into the 2040s and like the world's still fine, maybe China will have given up on Taiwan. But I mean, it seems like a key point Xi Jinping is targeting is reincorporating Taiwan. And you've seen them kind of like, I mean, I think Hong Kong has been more reincorporated. Even like the KMT has been talking more and more about reincorporating with China. Well, I think it's because like the odd thing too is like the nationalists don't just like China because they're Chinese nationalists when they incorporate, but it's also because they're businessmen and they know it's like better for them economically to be a part of China now. Funny enough.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so I just think like I honestly think without US, if the US, as always, if the US left the situation, I think Taiwan would likely become reincorporated into China. I think it would likely be somewhere between like an autonomous region and like kind of like Hong Kong, like a two systems, one country for the next few decades. But with the US involved, I mean, it really feels like a war would happen. But maybe I'm being sensationalist.
It depends, I think.
Yeah.
And like, because they're using China right now to build up on more of the military-industrial complex. Since we're focusing more on like drones and stuff in like the Middle East, and don't really have ground troops at the moment, except in like Syria, I think maybe.
But we're also moving out in the Middle East, right, or West Asia.
Yeah, we are. That's what they were saying. Like they want to get to the east.
Yeah. I mean, it's that whole thing.
I think it's because we don't really need oil anymore,
Yeah,
like as much, because the U.S. gets most of its oil from Mexico and Canada, and then itself too. The only thing, the reason why they more or less be involved in like the Middle East is to keep prices like stable, I think.
yeah. I mean, I think to some extent they kind of almost succeeded in Iraq, right? I mean, they just kind of wanted to.
It's kind of funny now that Iraq was more of a success than Afghanistan was.
Yeah. It's funny. I guess like it's like Afghanistan. I mean, with I guess both countries. I also not too much of an expert about Afghanistan. I guess with Syria, they've kind of been able to at least destabilize Syria for the time being. But
It seems like Syria's reached a stalemate at the moment. There's like no
yeah,
major like shifts of like any land or like fighting, at least in the news recently.
yeah. No, I agree. I agree. Um, but yeah, now with in the east, you have what the U.S. building like the missiles system off the coast of China, and obviously the supposed troops in Taiwan. You have the U.S. military bases in Japan, and Korea. The U.S. is trying to make inroads with Vietnam and whatnot. We just get nuclear submarines to Australia. Yeah, so it definitely seems like it's moving to the Pacific.
I think because China has more investments and involvement in Africa, where most of the rare earth minerals are. I
Yeah,
think that's one of the probably the big reason they want to stifle China.
yeah. I mean, I think it's honestly, honestly, there's like a billion reasons, and that's definitely one of the major ones. I think they really don't want like. I mean, China, I know what I'm trying to say. I mean, I think China is surpassing the U.S. as the economic hegemon in like every way that the U.S. can't let happen. I mean, I think like China being like 1/7 of the world population, if they like fully develop, that's like all the U.S.'s cheap labor is gone.
Yeah, it's gone.
Um, yeah,
That's why they moved some of it to Bangladesh. What was the other countries? Thailand.
no, exactly. I guess Pakistan kind of, I don't know, actually. Indonesia, but yeah, I think also just kind of like China recenters global trade. It's back to China again because they kind of have like they can between Europe they have trains going to Africa throughout Asia. The U.S. kind of has been like for the last half century has been the geographic center of global trade. So
It's funny because China was the hub of global trade for like thousands of years.
yeah,
Like up until like the 1500s.
yeah, exactly, yeah. And I do like I said I do think the reason I do think the South China Sea is where things will reach a boiling point because the U.S. does not want China to have dominance over the South China Sea, and like China cannot like operate with if the U.S. were to blockade China ever with the South China Sea, like they'd have to go to war. I think because that's one of the major trade lines for China.
The next, it seems like they're trying to build up an excuse to go to war with China at the moment, and it's not really working out.
It does fucking. It's kind of disgusting because it's like the war. A war of China would be the worst war I really think ever fought. And
Yeah,
like
in human history, to be honest. Like,
yeah,
it'd go nuclear.
yeah. I really hope. I mean, like, yeah. I honestly think realistically it would go nuclear. But even if it didn't go nuclear, obviously it'd be fucking awful. If it went nuclear, it'd be the end of the world. And it just seems like I don't know. I mean, not to be controversial.
Like their biggest fear during the Korean War was China getting involved. And
Yeah,
they're like,
yeah.
we could, like, their plan to make sure China doesn't get involved was drop a bunch of nukes on the Korean border with China to make it a radioactive wasteland so they couldn't cross it.
Yeah, no, Jesus Christ, yeah, and I don't know, just like to me, it's not to call out like the libs or anything, but it's just like to me, it's kind of I feel like there's so many people I talk to who are like liberal, like Democrats, and like they almost like outflank the U.S. government on like the war hawkishness. Like there's so many people I know, and even right wingers too, who are like, oh, like the U.S. like needs to defend Taiwan, and they're like, go Joe Biden for like making that statement, but it's like literally cheering on like World War III, in my opinion. And like no matter what it's just like the hypocrisy to be like, oh, like Taiwan deserves to be like an independent, like autonomous, and should have like sovereignty when you don't like give that to like the U.S. as a settler country. Nonetheless, Hawaii, which like the U.S. just like stole.
Or Puerto Rico.
Or Puerto Rico. Yeah, these people never say the same thing for like their own, I don't know, colonized nations. But for Taiwan, they're the biggest cheerleaders of human rights.
That's funny because this one guy I know told me he wants to go to war with China because he wants the U.S. to invade China and take it over.
Oh my god, yeah, no, people are fucking crazy. I mean, there's a kid I brought this up before. There's a kid I knew. I met him in Taiwan, and he was a Trotskyist. He was a Trotskyist, and he told me that he would join the U.S. military if they went to the war of China, because he said that China is like Nazi Germany, and he feels very strongly that he wants to liberate China.
That's an exaggeration there, because like Nazi Germany was committing mass exterminations. Like,
yes, but I have fucking like Bernie friends who said to me too. They think they're like, oh, you know, like I take Nazi Germany really seriously, and they're like, I think that China is the Nazis today. And they'll tell me, because of like Xinjiang or whatever atrocity.
Well, like fascists are like they see China as like their ideal state.
I've never met a fascist who like China, like a self-proclaimed fascist.
The ones that aren't like, so like there's like some fascists that were arguing with Haas about whether China was fascist or not, and they were like, yeah, China like is a corporatist state, that's fascism.
Yeah, I mean,
it was like it was really weird debate like he had. I don't even remember. I didn't finish it, I think.
Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah. I saw this to be a Lauren Southern Africa. Did she say that, or did she not?
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I maintain that China is not a fascist state, but you will find people of all different stripes that say China is fascist, including Maoists. I've heard say China is fascist.
I've met Maoists who support fascism because it's because it's a populist right-wing ideology, according to them.
Okay. See, I've not met Maoists do that, but I wouldn't be surprised.
I've talked to a lot of crazy people.
Yeah, that sounds about it. Yeah, I don't know. I've met. It's probably just like this is why personally I don't. You know, not all Maoists obviously, but I've just met Maoists who are more like anti-China than they are anti-US. I think consider China to be like the greatest evil, and like I don't know. I feel like you have to be talking yourself in circles to like maintain that position.
It's so it's an anti-progress position. It's because they like how things currently are. They don't want things to change, and they can't imagine a future where things are different and change. So that does not make things worse for them.
Yeah. The funny thing is, I feel like I've barely met, even among like Chinese Americans, very Chinese people, I've barely met many Chinese Maoists who are vehemently anti-China. They're mostly usually white men, but it changes.
I think it's a part of race. It's like a racist thing, to be honest.
Yeah, it just seems like they find different ideologies to justify it. I don't know. The one about in this other server, there's like this one Mao who's like later posting about China. Like it's like he's like obsessive about it. He's like this Irish white guy. He's like obsessive about China and how they deviated from. It's funny, he used to be a Trotskyist, I think, and now he's a Maoist, but I deviated from Mao Zedong thought and whatnot. He posted like a video of like the police cracking down on people in China. He's like, they're cracking down on a labor strike. Like this proves that they're like fascist and whatnot. And it's like, I mean, obviously, first there's no evidence of a workers' strike, and like, I mean, that would not be cool. I mean, like, I don't know. It's like it just seems like it just seems like it's a wild, like, I don't know, weird, like hawkish view of the world. I mean, like, there are shit like that happens in like every country. There's no details like what was going on with the strike at all or anything. It's like it seems like a weird standard to hold. Like, I'm pretty sure Mao Zedong also cracked down on certain workers' strikes.
Yeah,
I don't know.
there was like some strikes going on in the 60s or 70s, and like they made like an anarchist commune in like Shanghai or something.
Yeah.
And then they'd go on for a couple months, and they shut that shit down. And they had some of the people, they imprisoned some of them, and they had some of the others go to the countryside to talk about their experience.
Oh wow. Well, you never hear that Mao was a fascist from the Maoists. I didn't know this,
Yeah.
but apparently in the Soviet Union there was also something not that radical, but I think there were like worker-owned factories in the early USSR, either under Lenin or like early Stalin, that kind of just like immediately kind of like failed. I think it was like they tried like just like selling off the factories immediately. I think it was like during the NEP or something, and that's like why a bunch of them got nationalized then.
Oh, that's fucking wild. Holy shit.
Yeah. I have to find the details on that, but it was something like that where it was like they gave the workers like the right to own the factories and they tried to sell them off immediately.
Well, yeah, because they still had money in the
NEP,
like,
yeah.
yeah, like
Yeah, which
when you
I
have
think
money still involved.
this substantiates why things are materially and historically like contingent. Like we can't just go straight to worker owned everything in the United States right now.
Well, if we still have, it like depends on the system. Like, if
Yeah,
you go
yeah,
try to like immediately, people are gonna end up just selling all of it. Like, if you leave everything the same and you just add worker, like democratization, people might do is like convince everyone to sell the plant,
yeah,
or
yeah.
like,
I mean,
or
even in
something crazy
Spain,
like
they
that.
have in Spain, the fucking thing Chomsky always talks about is like Mondrago or whatever,
Yeah,
and like they
I,
fucking
I'm not,
like they like don't they like offshore a lot of their labor?
yeah, like only like some parts of it's like really a workers' democracy.
Yeah,
It depends, like on the like what branch. It's really weird because like it's such a big corporation.
yeah, yeah, and it's like they still compete in the market and contribute to climate change and et cetera, et cetera. I don't know. I don't know. I think just the fact that Chomsky, I call him out Chomsky, but the fact that he holds that up as like a success, I think says a lot. Not about him, but about like the idea of worker cooperatives within capitalism.
Like there's been anti-worker cooperative like literature for like 100 years from both sides criticizing it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you had Rosa. I mean, obviously she had the main one, but I think Stalin, Lenin. I feel like Marx critiques it, but I'm not too sure.
It's like a form of reformism.
Yeah,
There was a
yeah.
fuck, what's his name? There was like this one workers' council like theorist I read who talked about the issues of it because it's a form of reformism.
I'm not too sure which
Okay.
worker counts. Are you talking about Rosa Luxemburg?
No, it's a different dude. He was critical of Lenin as well.
He's
Fuck, I don't
German.
remember his name. No, I think it was Italian. Oh, here I found it. His name is Anton Pannokia. Anton Panniakin or some shit. I don't fucking know.
Yeah, I never heard of him. Yeah, no, I mean, it is a form of reformism. I mean, it's
Oh, he
not
was
like, I mean,
Dutch.
like, I feel like I'd rather work for a workers' co-op than like a not a workers' co-op per se.
Yeah,
but
true.
I think the fact is, I don't think my things would really change that much for me.
It probably
You know what I
would.
mean?
Like,
Yeah,
most things would stay the same.
I mean, because if it was actually a competitive business, like I'd have to like vote to reduce my wage or something.
Well, like it depends on like. Okay, so I worked at a place that was fuck, it was worker owned because it was an ESOP,
Yeah,
but you didn't get like shares in the company unless you've been there for like 2 years
yeah,
or like a year, yeah, or like a year or so. But so everyone like owned part of it, but there's still like a CEO and you still have like managers and stuff, and you still had no say in whatsoever. You just own part of the company and you got profits back.
that's like so many co-ops work.
Like so then so originally it was a private business, and so this woman founded it with her husband, and like they got divorced, and she kept the business, and then she retired. Instead of like selling it off to like a bigger corporation, they make like cosmetics. She
Yeah.
decided to make it an ESOP and sold it to the workers.
Okay.
And then like every year they would have like a dude come and figure out their stock price based on comparing it to other businesses in their field.
Yeah. Is it a major company or is it kind of like a?
It's so what they do is like it's a medium-sized business.
Yeah.
So like they make cosmetics for other businesses, and like they just change the
Okay.
label.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. That's kind of wild. That they just changed the label.
Yeah, so like they'll make the exact same product for one company and sell it to another one. All that's different is the label.
There's some beauty in capitalism, how like everything's actually the same product but with like different labels on it.
Yeah, exactly. There's like no differences.
Yeah, no, yeah. That was really funny.
Like I've worked at so many places where they sell the same shit to the same places, and the label's different and they have different prices.
Damn, no, that's really interesting. 'Cause you work at a juice place for now, right? But you like supply
Yeah,
all different. Yeah,
yeah, all different restaurants.
yeah. I goddamn. Yeah, that's really interesting. I think one of the
Yeah, I
more
worked at a dairy
ironies.
place.
Oh,
The same
really?
thing.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I guess I've only worked. I was working in fast food or in coffee. I guess actually I worked at a coffee place where they supplied coffee to other people and they changed the label on it. But
Yeah, like capitalism gives you the illusion of choice.
yeah, like one of the ironies, this is a little bit different, but I feel like an irony is that like this kind of early in my move to anti-capitalism, I learned this one was like Fucky Things, where it was like Axe and Dove are owned by the same people, but like Axe is about like I don't know getting
Man.
like laid, and like Dove is about like body positivity.
Yeah, it's hilarious to be honest,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
it
just
makes
how they
perfect
market.
sense.
Nope. Yeah. That was really funny. Yeah. A wild one is I don't know. I don't know where I'm going with this, but there's there's this like really racist toothpaste brand in China. But it's owned by like an American company. I guess either Crest or Colgate. I forget which one. But it's called like Black People Toothpaste,
What the
and
fuck?
it's yeah, it's called Hey Ren Yadao, and it's like it isn't just Black People Toothpaste, and it's a picture of like this black guy in like a top hat, but it's like blackface, and he's smiling, and it's kind of like a stereotype in China that black people have like really white teeth. I guess just because of like compared
Skin
to like
tone.
your dark skin, yeah. So it's a picture of a caricature essentially of like white teeth, and it's like a popular toothpaste brand. But it's like I think it's either owned by Colgate or Crest, one of the two.
Yeah, it's all owned by Colgate.
You just googled it.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. Do you see the picture of the?
Yes.
Yeah. No, it's literally everywhere.
Yeah, Colgate owns like 50% of the company.
Wow. Yeah, Google it now.
It's called Darky. Well,
Darky.
Darlie.
No, that's how they write it, but it literally in Chinese it's called Hey Ren Yadao, which is literally black people toothpaste.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, the Chinese
Yeah.
brand name Black People Toothpaste.
Yeah, but they named it Darlie in English or Darky. I think it
Yes,
was
it's
Darky, and they
Darlie,
changed
but
it to Dark. It was Darky, I think, in the past. I'm looking at the older
yeah,
boxes, and they changed it. Like, Jesus Christ, it's just like the biggest, like, a PR change, I guess. Well, I guess we had that. Remember the whole like Auntie Jemima thing or whatever?
Yeah, like last year.
Oh my god, I can't believe that was just fucking last year. I remember white people were pissed about that because it was like they're like it's part of our culture.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. So I guess any other
That's the only
thoughts
black
on
person they would let in their house.
Uncle Ben's?
Yeah, these are the two black people they let in their house.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, dude. You ever? We've talked about this before, but the racism that you deal, the random racism you deal with growing up being biracial.
Yeah, it's weird as fuck.
Yeah. How did your white grandparents feel about you growing up?
They loved me.
Like immediately?
Yeah, they gave me
Yeah,
whatever I wanted.
that's nice. I might have told you a story before. I feel like I complain about my
Well,
life a
my
lot,
grandpa died when I was 5, though.
okay. Sorry about that. But
Yeah.
so from my grandpa died when I was 17, and like we were really close, but he was so fucking racist. So you know it's wild. So he refused to meet me for 3 years.
What the fuck?
I was too young. This guy he's fucking racist. I think one day, I think my grandmother had like come to visit me a ton. My white grandma. I think one day she was like, I think she like stood up to him and was kind of like, she stood up to him that our grandson needs to come to the house. I guess I came over to the house, and I was like 3 years old. I ran up to him and I was like, "I love you, Grandpa," or something. And then I guess like after that, we honestly became like I didn't have. I mean, I know my dad. I never had the closest relationship just because of like how things ended up, and so I ended up living with my grandparents later on, and we became pretty close. But I think it's just, I mean, I don't think my grandfather met my dad until like I was 14 then.
Holy shit.
Yeah. And like he didn't like my dad. And the only really good reason was it seemed like because he was black. So just weird fucking shit, you know?
Yeah, my dad was adopted.
Yeah.
So it might have been different with his like biological family, but no. Well, what my mom told me was my grandma was racist while they were dating, and like he he heard my mom heard her talk to my dad over the phone. Stop hanging out with that black woman.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Dude, being fucking, I don't know, man. Yeah, shit's wild. My prom date, I don't really talk to her at all, but I went to her. I just got like, I got very bad vibes from her family back in high school. But my current partner, their parents are not racist at all. But yeah, I don't know.
They're just good at hiding it.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, their parents kind of suck for other reasons, but I think they're just kind of like, they're like white Italian, like Connecticuters. I think they've just been kind of like libs their whole life. So I'm sure they're racist in like the microaggression way, but not in the like.
My girlfriend's family are Italian.
Oh, hey.
Yeah.
Italians represent.
Yeah. Like I think her grandparents came from Italy, and she still like has grandparents inside like who still live in Italy.
Yeah, I think actually same with my partner's grandparents. I think actually I think one of their grandparents, I never met them, but actually be pretty great. I think one of them from Italy, but I don't know. Italy is what it is.
Exactly.
Yeah. How like even like hanging out with like white people growing up, like friends wise? Did you ever have any like racist like white parents or anything?
No.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like just I know
I also never really went to anyone's houses.
Oh, okay.
Well,
Okay,
yeah,
yeah.
I will. I usually just hung out with them. So where I lived was like in a townhouse, and there was like a playground. So I just played with people outside.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, a couple times I go over someone's house, but I didn't really like going into people's houses.
Yeah, I was the same way in like elementary school / like middle school, but I feel like in like high school, I went to a few places. But I remember there was like this one person's parents. His mom called me his brown skin friend.
What?
A lot, and then I had another guy. So I My name is not Andre or anything like it, but this one guy's dad would always call me Andre.
He just didn't know your name.
Yeah. There's like stupid shit like that. So, any other thoughts on Taiwan, China?
I think Taiwan is going to invade China and reclaim the mainland.
Ooh, spicy, 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 spicy. That was their goal for a
About
long
100
time.
years.
Yeah, I think actually one of the more recent KMT candidates was saying that like he could do it. I think in more of like a slogan way than more than like he actually could do it.
They've been like they had a chance.
Yeah, yeah. Do you think? I guess I feel like I did a lot of talking here, but I guess do you think that like a war could be avoided? Do you think that Taiwan deserves independence? What are your thoughts?
I don't really care what happens to Taiwan. They can do whatever the fuck they
Yeah,
want.
that makes sense. Yeah, but do you think what scenario do you think a war is likely avoided here?
The status quo remains.
I guess do you think the status quo is tenable though, as China's economy continues to march forward and the U.S. continues to diminish?
It depends.
Depends on what.
So it depends if the U.S. looks like it's heading for another recession.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that definitely seems like where it's headed.
Because wasn't there a recession right before the War on Terror?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There was.
Then in like 2008, there was we had the recession again. Then a couple years later, the whole Arab Spring.
True, true, true. Yeah, I mean, a war is one of the best ways to end economic
It's GDP.
recession. Yeah, raise that production. But yeah, I mean, a war of China would be so significant, so different in nature. I do think it will.
Well, because the U.S. has been fighting asymmetrical wars since like World War II. Like
Yeah,
we haven't fought anyone who's been on the same scale with us militarily.
yeah, yeah. I think wasn't there some like doesn't the U.S. have some kind of like war game or something where they like went to war of China and like immediately lost or something?
Yeah, I think I read that. Yeah.
Yeah. I know there are also people in the U.S. military says that like they could take on China. I think it would. It would be a bloody war, and I think I just think it would. I think it'd be the end of the U.S. actually, or the end of the world. One of the two.
I don't think.
Not.
No one wins from that war.
Yeah. Well, I don't think China would invade the U.S. obviously, but I do think it would. If it's not a nuclear war, I think it would cement like Chinese dominance over the globe.
Well, because China has the capability to attack the mainland U.S. without invading.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they may attack the mainland. I don't think they would invade
Well,
the
because like
U.S.
the U.S. has almost has never been like invaded or attacked.
It would be. I mean,
Last
I think
time
that would be
that would be
Armageddon.
demoralizing to any U.S. presidency if the
Yeah,
mainland U.S. is attacked.
yeah. I do think if China puts troops like a lot on the U.S. soil, I do think that would. I think that just have to be a nuclear. I mean, not that I want that, but I do think that would go nuclear.
Yeah, either that or like you'd see a huge rise in nationalism in the U.S. and
Oh
anti-Chinese,
yeah. No, I'm sure.
anti-Asian sentiment and all, and
No,
like
I'm sure.
because
I'm
people
sure.
can't tell the difference. So
Yeah.
any war with China would be horrible for any Asian person in America.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. Yeah.
Because like World War II, you had the internment camps.
And Japanese.
Had
Yeah.
to do that again. And World War One, the U.S. destroyed all the German culture in the Midwest.
Yeah.
They didn't
No,
trust any
it'd be bad.
Germans. Yeah.
Really bad. I think I almost feel like even then, this war is. I think it will be worse. I don't know how, but I think in both those wars, the U.S. was fighting more reactionary governments that were like the more economically on the weaker side. You know what I mean? Like I think the US
Yeah,
is coming up from the top, but now I think the US is in this would be in this scenario the Japan or not Germany taking
yeah.
on China.
I think it'd be more of during World War One, the powers, the Axis powers.
Yeah,
Well, I forgot what they're called, but like the
the Triple
Ottomans.
Entente. Yeah,
Yeah, there we go. They were weakening in Europe and the global stage. It was like their final hurrah before like the collapse.
yeah, that's what it would be. Um, I don't think it would be
Except for
good.
Germany. Germany was like the only one who wasn't collapsing, but it was the
Yeah,
one that got fucked over the most after the Treaty of Versailles, even though they didn't even start the war or anything.
yeah. Yeah, I think Germany. Well, Germany was doing the whole thing with like what they were trying to. They were just trying to compete with. I mean, the whole thing was going to break out into war, but they were trying to compete with like England the whole time, right?
Pretty much.
Yeah, like the whole. Remember the whole like like the whole like navy thing or whatever.
Yeah, the German like they wanted to build. Yeah, they were building up their navy to compete with the British Navy.
Yeah, which is pretty much like only meant like go to war with the Brits when you pour that much money into it. You might want to use it.
Exactly.
It seems like something that could be an analogous for today, as Australia builds up the largest nuclear submarine fleet in the world, and the U.S. pours like billions of dollars into anti-missile, whatever technology in the Pacific.
I think any sort of war between China and the U.S. will end in the destruction of both countries.
You think?
Yeah,
Well, why?
because the U.S. has the capabilities of. Okay, so we heavily rely on each other for trade, and we currently give a shit ton of food to. We sell a shit ton of food to China.
Yeah.
So that would ruin our economy, their economy. Then the destruction of the war itself would bankrupt either both countries.
Yeah, China also now has so many like deep ties with like the rest of the world as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but China
Um,
still gets like more than half of their food from us.
that's true. That's true. Imagine. Yeah, you have a really good point there. Um, still, I would say though that I was gonna say, I still think, for example, like they can like get more food from like Russia and they're like on the rest of the world. And as I think things change,
I think
I don't know.
Russia would get involved in the war and side with China.
Yeah, I know exactly.
So I
But
pretty much what would happen too is you'd have a front. So Europe would get involved with NATO and more or less be fighting on. There'd be a whole other new Eastern front between Russia and Europe. In
well,
the
that's
Pacific, you probably
I don't know though. That's the thing. I don't know if
true. I don't know for a fact if Russia would get involved.
no. I think Russia is more good to get involved than Europe is, in my opinion. I
Well,
honestly think Europe.
that's if they abandon NATO.
Yeah, well, isn't NATO only enacted if it's a defensive? Which I'm sure the US will spin, but
They will make
um,
it. They will provoke China into attacking first or something,
yeah.
or make it
But
like
still,
yeah.
I guess like because Europe, I think here's my opinion. I think the US knows this too. I think AUKUS is the axis of evil against progress in the world. So that's going to be like Australia, US, UK, probably Canada will get brought in. I think we'll all be in the next war. But I think like France and Germany are both too tied into both China and Russia at this point. That really the US would really have to pressure. I mean, it's possible Europe. I think, in my opinion, I think Europe will stay neutral as long as they can in the war.
The thing is, though, too, World War II and World War One afterwards, the U.S. wasn't affected at all by those wars, so they were able to fund and rebuild like the Allied nations.
Yeah, yeah.
So I don't
I
know
think
who would take that role afterwards for either side and like have homogeny over the whole world.
you have to watch the Cockshot video though, because I really like. I really think this will be a lot more like food wise. Obviously, is a really good point, but I do think this will be a lot more economically destructive for the U.S. than China. I don't think the U.S. will really be able to get substantial footing on the Chinese mainland, and just that the China has like 50 plus, like 100 plus cities are just like industrial powerhouses, that the U.S. has practically none. Like the China can just like pop out
Yeah,
industry.
we deindustrialized like everything.
It's like China's just so much more organically. I mean, food is their biggest weakness, as you mentioned. But I think I would like just like their economy is able to like live on its own, to where the U.S. is a lot more parasitic, even though they are deeply tied in with one another, though.
Unless you see like another trade war where the U.S. and China are like more or less cutting ties with each other, I doubt there'll be another war. There'll be a war between the two.
You think?
But yeah, if you start seeing both sides cutting ties like economically with each other to prevent like shocks to their economies, then yeah, that's when you probably see a war happening. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's like what the right wants, though, right?
Yeah, especially Trump. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just the whole GOP wants China out. I don't know. I mean, I think
like they see it. They want to put China down before it becomes too threatening to U.S. interests.
Yeah. I think there is splits within the U.S. ruling class. Being that there are some ones that would want a war with China, and some that would not. But I do think in the long term, in my opinion, I think the ones that want the war could easily likely win out, in my opinion. But I don't know. I'm obviously sensationalist a bit. But I think the capitalism is tending towards crisis and more serious crisis each time. A war with China is the only kind of war that could save the system, and also China is just like poses the biggest existential threat to the U.S., not in the literal sense, but just in like its hegemon over the world economically and geopolitically. That I think just kind of like how like all major wars start, the kindling is there, and just the way the U.S. is already provoking it when it doesn't even seem necessary, I think just like says a lot.
I think we could just have nothing happen at all and like it continue for a while longer at least.
We'll see. My June predictions for the 21st century is I think we have till 2050 to solve the world's problems, and I really do think that we could see, if we don't have socialism in the United States, I think we could see a significant global conflict. I don't know if it'll be called a world war or not before 2050, and I think it could be in like the 2030s.
It could be,
or sooner,
because we're gonna head to an ecological crisis soon.
Yeah, I think the economic and ecological boundaries kind of all fall off by 2050. I think it's like something the rate of profit is supposed to hit zero by 2050, which I mean obviously is deterministic, but even if it's like getting close to zero, is a devastation for capitalism, and also the climate crisis is untenable by 2050 as well. Also, like China will have seriously elapsed the US by then as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, any last thoughts?
It sounds like a dumb political move to invade or go to war with China.
Yeah, no, it's war is really fucking dumb. But capitalism necessitates war. That's why we're anti-capitalist.
Yeah. I thought it was because we wanted free stuff from the government.
That too.
Thanks for listening to our podcast. Check us out next time at Patreon, on YouTube, Spotify. Do you want to shout anything else out? Want to talk?
Yeah. Thanks for listening. Enjoy fall. Enjoy your day. I think it's really easy to say both sides bad here in this situation, but I think you really need to be critical of what the U.S. is doing here. I think as an anti-imperialist, as a socialist, as a leftist, you should support China's independent development and the U.S. out of East Asia and the Pacific, and support progressive policy at home, and fight the Cold War and fight another war. That's all I have to say.
Workers of the world unite.
Workers of the world unite.
Yeah. To quote Malatesta, we want bread, freedom, love, and science for everybody.
Yes. Red salute, baby.